Thanks. This is CEO Incubation Engineering. Wayne, thanks for adding the first item. You want to verbalize?
Sure. So updates on AI code suggestions will now be every 2 weeks in the CEO Slack channel. First update was published yesterday from Taylor in product management. Put a link in there for that. If we'd like updates to be in a recurring sync as well, I'd suggest a new meeting instead of this one. So we can have all the DRIs, including Fred, of course, in incubation engineering, who's still working on it, and also the DRIs in product management and development. And the team members working on it, if interested, can be found in this MR, which we recently updated the handbook to clarify that.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Why is that private or confidential?
Which the MR?
Yeah, the MR. Or I have to sign in for GitLab.com, but maybe that's not because it's confidential.
Yeah, it's updating the public handbook.
Oh, yeah, it just wants me to sign back in. Cool.
Yeah, I'll add the link to the updated handbook page. I didn't know if the MR would get merged before this meeting, so I put the MR in, merged and deployed.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I should be signed into GitLab.com anyway, so no problems. Thank you. Darby.
Yeah, he said.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I didn't address the last point of Wayne. Like when you say, hey, maybe a synchronous meeting, I'm okay with the async updates. I think we got a lot of people on it now, a lot of focus. Do you think, so it's not needed for me to stay in the loop. Do you think I'd add value? Because I don't think so. And it's very much okay to say that you don't think so either.
I think async first. I think that's fine. I think historically we got off track from your vision for this. So I want to make sure we stay on track. So as long as you're reading the Slack messages and commenting as appropriate, I think we're good.
Yeah, that makes sense. How would you describe it? I would describe it as historically we kept doing things that were not, hey, if I'm using GitLab.com, I get good suggestions in the web IDE.
That's our goal is to make it so you get good code suggestions using powered by AI in the IDEs that our users are using. That's the goal.
Yeah, I'm thinking only the web IDE and VS Code with the GitLab plugin.
That's the current scope. What we're targeting for the open customer beta.
Yep.
And it's going well. We just we went off track months ago a little bit, and now we're back on track. I just want to make sure we stay on track.
Awesome. Well, it seems like we're on track, and I don't not worried about going off track again. I think we're there. Thanks. Sorry, Darby, for the bait and switch. We're really ready for now.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, just kind of a random question, but I'm curious if you've ever thought about like a mobile app that would be an interesting like GitLab product. Like a fully functional app would be a lot to maintain. And I don't know that we would necessarily want to invest in that, but any ideas that have like come across your brain for like cool mobile capabilities that you kind of wish we had? The context of this is I'd love to have something a little bit more like useful to dog food for mobile DevOps.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of mobile apps for GitLab already, so you could just start with one of those code bases.
Okay.
Nothing
Easy
more
enough.
fun than a legacy code base to find all the bugs.
Sure. Okay.
Or legacy, but existing, I guess. Yeah. There's multiple of them. And then regarding the mobile app for GitLab, I still think that makes a ton of sense. But if you make it official, you almost have to kind of keep it in lockstep, and that's really hard. I think even even GitHub has only a subset of their web app features in the mobile app.
Okay.
I, for one, use those.
Go ahead.
I, for one, use those features sometimes from the GitHub app, so makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And maybe it makes sense. Maybe we're at that time where we should do a mobile app. I just think the policy has been to delay it for as long as we can, because there's enough to do in GitLab to make it complete in DevSecOps. I think we've been able to delay it longer than I expected when I made that decision, but I'm open to revising as soon as product and engineering and marketing and sales think so.
Okay, and I'll say, like, for my selfish reasons, I'm not suggesting that we need to change our position there. I'm just looking for opportunities to dog food more. So I like your suggestion of looking at some of the code bases that are out there and seeing how we can like tie in with those.
Cool.
So yeah, I'll take a look at that.
You weren't suggesting that, but I did want to mention it. Cool. Thanks for that. Cool. Giannis.
Yeah, so in my last video, I already hinted at I had some experiments with V8 isolates in Go. And I was able to run JavaScript in GitLab Pages, like executing scripts in there. Was very interesting experiment, but before I go down that rabbit hole, I wanted to give you the opportunity to give me some feedback on that, other than crypto mining, which is an obvious exploit for that. And yeah, I got a lot more dogfooding interest on that instantly, which is interesting because I never got that with the whole doing a Cloudflare workers integration. So
that's a good sign. Yeah, I think it's super important for incubation engineering. We follow the usage. Sometimes we make features and there's not a ton of usage. So great to see that there's dogfooding interest. That's a good sign. It tends to interest from our own team members tends to be a leading indicator. Where do these isolates run? Do they run on kind of the Pages server, like hosted
Correct,
by
yeah.
GitLab.com?
Yeah, they would be running within the container where the Pages service runs. So Go basically just interfaces with that, with the V8 C library, creates a new isolate per request. So there's no access between those.
We'd be hosting our own, instead of Cloudflare hosting the workers, we'd be hosting the workers.
Basically, yes, this would be the result. That.
Wow, I see
a ton, yeah.
A ton of security considerations, a ton of abuse, a ton of kind of not abuse per se, but just kind of noisy neighbor problems where so I don't, so okay, the request comes in. It makes sense because if you look, we probably have a bunch of servers serving pages.
Yeah.
And then the requests come in and they got round robin or something like that.
Right.
And then you have a little bit of time. Are these pages servers that we have already, maybe they're IO bound right now and they have some free CPU we could use? Or how were you thinking about that?
I would have to experiment with that. So the good thing about this is we can very, very slowly go at that, have a closed beta with just a couple of projects, 1, 2, 3 projects that are allowed to do that, and just see what the impact is on CPU usage and how we could scale that in the future. So that's a slow approach that I'd love to take for that. But to be honest, I have no idea what the impact of that would be, what the how big the applications that run JavaScript would be if we let this into the wild. So this would be a lot of look and learn.
I'm very supportive. I think, like, usability wise, it's 2 orders of magnitude better to just have this than have to sign up for Cloudflare as well for the user. Yeah. And maybe we can restrict the amount of milliseconds per request or something like that. So
yeah, that would be my initial idea.
Jobs
I'd also want to have a tiered pricing, like have a certain amount of CPU minutes for free, and everything ahead above that would go into a higher tier.
Yeah, we should rename we call them now CI minutes, but we should just call them compute and not invent something
Compute,
else.
yeah. Correct.
We already have
for
a
that.
certain amount of minutes for free.
Yeah,
Just
obviously that's
deduct from the same
in
minutes.
Rails right now, but yeah, we could spin that. That's actually a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, the Go code should just call out to Rails like, hey, build this
Yeah.
user for this many minutes, etc.
That's actually a great idea.
It's called isolate, which gives a very fuzzy, warm and fuzzy feeling about how isolated it is. How isolated is it? Like, how happy is the red team when you say that you're going to do this stuff?
I'd have to ask them. But in theory, it's the same thing that drives the isolation between browser tabs, for example, in Chrome. Like if you were able to break out of an isolate in here, you would be able to do the same thing within any browser that runs Chrome right now.
That's $1 million bounty?
I guess that's a multi-million-dollar bounty, yeah. So I'd be actually way more concerned around abuse and things like that than breaking out. I think Cloudflare has published a few studies around how they're doing it because they're using isolates as well. I think they were concerned with an exploit called Spectre, which kind of uses predictive computing to find out. Yeah. Okay. That's mostly the one unsolved issue that Cloudflare states is there. I have to trust them on that.
I think if you make it closed beta and you clearly document that this is vulnerable to the Spectre attack and it's a multi-tenant system.
Yeah.
I think this is good. I think it will be. I can't wrap my head around. Can you use Spectre to look at the contents of other people's pages? Because looking at the contents of their isolates and stuff, that's opt-in. So like people signed up for that. People did not sign up to have people look at their private pages. And I think that you could use Spectre too to look at the contents of private pages. And now I'm like, now we need a separate set of kind of pages servers for the people in and outside the beta. And now things get tricky really rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are the things that I wanted to think about at this stage before I'm investing a lot of work in it.
Yeah, I wonder, it's always another layer of abstraction. So like, can you put it in its own virtual machine or something off to the side or Firecracker or whatever? But I can wrap my head around it. It's okay. I would look into Spectre. It's okay if they get into the stuff of other people's private beta because you disclose that before they signed up for the beta. It's not okay if they can look at private pages because these people didn't sign up for that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to team up with the appropriate people within GitLab to start with. And then have a look deeper into those issues.
Cool. Thanks for that, Eduardo.
We'll get Aaron first.
Yes, Aaron is first, actually, not me.
Okay. No worries.
Sorry.
No, all good. Yeah, so for myself, just wanted to say thanks for the nuclei suggestion. I worked with the DAS team to sort of look at the report formats and see how I can use the generic report format. So pretty quickly, like as we can see in my last demo, I was able to get nuclei and wrap it with a new tool called Nuclei Analyzer, which I wrote, which runs nuclei and then exports it into a DAST report. So it's already in GitLab.com. I can see it within the vulnerability reports using the nuclei as the input for the vulnerability data. And then off the back of that, I've started adding my own exploits. So I've started writing a couple of exploits inside of nuclei using those templates, and I'm able to run exploits against a service container. So it's pretty good. And then most recently, I reached out to the Threat Insights team, who provided me with some more additional information where I can use the generic report format instead of the DAST specific format. And now I'm starting to add in additional things like I can add in like the custom fields and markdown and stuff like that in my reports to sort of highlight exactly the exploits information. Whereas what I'd been doing initially is I started working like actually creating a new report type and stuff in the back end. But the Threat Insights team helped me do a lot of that on the sort of report format, where I'm able to sort of encapsulate it all within the data. So sort of next plans to be doing a blog post on, hey, this is how you create your own analyzer for whatever security tool you're running. And on top of that, here's how you run exploits and provide exploit information. And so I've been talking to a couple of the teams about how we can expose like, hey, this has been exploited, and like auto confirm. Because there's like right now for the security reports, you can go in and confirm a vulnerability. Whereas if you run an analyzer that has this exploit capability, we can automatically confirm vulnerabilities for you.
Cool. That sounds super cool. I have no clue what you should focus on or what you should work on and whether this is, but it sounds super cool. So I encourage you to write a blog post and maybe reach out to Brandon or Larry. He's a developer advocate at Project Discovery. And I used to work at GitLab, and he's an all-around great person. So he might be interested in tag teaming on that. But I'm not telling you to do it. I'm impressed by the work, and I don't know how it fits into our broader strategy.
No, absolutely. I already have some changes I want to upstream to them. So I think reaching out to Brandon would be a good shot. So yeah, besides that, in terms of dog fooding, I've already reached out to James Hebden, and they've got some changes with Vulnmapper and updates that I'm pretty interested in. So I want to see if I can look at potentially adding in like that sort of like proof of exploits and the sort of prioritizing vulnerabilities that we validated or actual vulnerabilities as opposed to things we thought we were vulnerable to.
Cool. Awesome. Eduardo.
Hey, it's me. So yeah, we were talking about feature flags and a few of the other chats we were having before, and this also with Dan. So I pushed something that was logging feature flags a year ago, and this issue was the first one that I saw that was actually using these logs. They picked up those and created a Kibana to compare performance between the different versions, between the shipped code and the old code, and I find it pretty interesting. They're not really scalable to that solution because it's for their problem only, but it's a start into giving another safety net for reviewers, because then you can push the code and you can see whether across the board is it causing performance issue, more database issues. Is it which version is causing more errors? Do you have something that we are not picking up from there? So it's more like of a ping on this issue. I found it very interesting. I came across it by chance, but it was Jesse and Imre did a fantastic job on that one.
Cool. Very cool to see. I'm still with feature flags. It's kind of unrelated to what you mentioned, but I'm still deeply concerned about us not dogfooding the feature flags in GitLab. I think that's it's a really bad sign and something I'd love to change sooner rather than later. I realize that's not you, but I just want to verbalize that. And I've tried to make this 2 separate points. It's not working. But yeah, cool. Thanks for showing this. Looks neat. with the dog fooding, actually, it's almost like it's a feature flags. Like we have something in our product, we have something we use in our infrastructure team, and now we're switching to Flux for our CD strategy, and that's more commonly used with Flagger, which I think is neither of the two. So now we have three things. So I'd love for someone to bring that down to one. I see Daniel nodding a lot. Daniel, you wanna verbalize your frustration a bit as well? Am I right? Is none of the two Flagger, or is one of the two in the product and infrastructure Flagger? I wasn't sure about that.
I don't actually think we're using Flagger right now, Sid, if I remember correctly. But yeah, having three separate solutions there's just been mismatched requirements a little bit, whereby we have certain requirements from infra that aren't really our customer requirements, and gelling the customer need together with our infrastructural like management and support needs has just not really happened. And then I believe the growth team had been using a separate tool to be able to sort of do more A/B kind of comparisons with feature flags, which is sort of maybe aligns a little with this a bit more. I do agree with you. I'd been, and maybe I'm just projecting some of what's been shared with me by other folks, but some of it has been a bit frustrating for people trying to gel all these three things together and have a coherent story to tell. So yeah, totally agree. Not sure what I can.
No functionality in GitLab ever became a success without using it ourselves. So we know that it's useless if we don't use it ourselves. It's never going to get anywhere. So that's step one. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Sorry, I didn't have like a cohesive thought on some of these. I'm just saying, wow, that looks super cool. Thank you for sharing in the call.
Incubation is not exactly famous for cohesive thoughts. We try things and then we make them work, and not really cohesive.
We try things and then make them popular. I think that's the important part. Cool. Thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sid. Thanks, everyone.